Welcome to the County of Santa Clara Registrar of Voters Judicial Seminar presentation. This presentation will provide useful election information for the judges of the Superior Court in preparation of their election activities in the March 5th, 2024 presidential primary election. On this slide, you'll find our agenda for today's presentation. In the following slides, we'll be sharing information related to the signature in lieu period, declaration of intention period, nomination period, write-in petition process, and go over other nomination documents to be submitted during the nomination period, as well as your ROV contacts. As a reminder, when filing your documents at the ROV's office during the declaration of intention and nomination periods, please be sure to use only the forms issued by the Registrar of Voters office. Forms printed from other websites like the Secretary of State's office will not be accepted. We'll now move on to our calendar of important dates to remember. Before I begin sharing information, I'd like to point out that during the March 5th, 2024 presidential primary election activities, we are also finalizing our November 7th, 2023 special election activities. This includes the write-in candidacy period between September 11th and October 24th, and early voting between October 28th through November 6th. Therefore, you may see voters in our office or at vote centers picking up and dropping off ballots for that election too. The signature in lieu period for the March 5th, 2024 presidential primary election begins on September 14th and ends on November 8th. This is an optional period for a candidate to submit signatures of valid registered voters to offset their filing fee. The declaration of intention period begins on October 30th and ends on November 8th. It's important to remember to please file your declaration of intention and sworn statement of qualifications forms on or before November 8th by 5:00 p.m. If the Registrar of Voters office does not receive your forms by end of the declaration of intention period, you will be unable to file the necessary documents during the nominations period, and you will be ineligible to qualify as a candidate. The Declaration of Intention extension period begins on November 9 and ends on November 13. During this period, any candidate other than the incumbent can file a Declaration of Intention form and sworn statement of qualification form. The nomination period begins on November 13th and ends on December 8th. During this period, you'll file all other required nomination documents to qualify as a candidate. If you intend to campaign and raise funds in efforts of your candidacy, along with any semi-annual statement periods, there will be 2 FPPC pre-election statement due dates. The first due date is on January 25th for the reporting period January 1 through January 20th, or the day after the closing date of the last statement filed. The second due date is on February 22nd for reporting period January 21st through February 17th, or the day after the closing date of the last statement filed. Additionally, if you have an open campaign committee, then you'll also have a semi-annual statement due on July 31st for reporting period July 1 through June 30th, or the day after the closing date of the last statement filed. Election Day is on March 5th, 2024. The official canvass of votes and certification of election results will be held on April 4th. Please keep in mind that judicial seats will remain off ballot for both the direct primary and general elections unless a candidate other than the incumbent files nominations paperwork during the regular nomination period or the extension period, or if a qualified petition is filed with the ROV's office that forces a judge's name to either the direct primary election or the general election to allow for a write-in campaign. We'll speak more about this in the coming slides. On this slide are useful resources to consider throughout the election cycle. The March 5, 2024 Presidential Primary Election Resources webpage includes information such as lists of unofficial or qualified candidates, including write-in candidates and candidates who have pulled signatures in lieu forms, an abbreviated calendar of all important dates to remember throughout the election cycle, certain candidate forms that can be released to the public prior to the nominations period, the candidate guide, and other links to resource web pages such as the Fair Political Practices Commission and the State of California Elections Code website. We'll now discuss in more detail the signature in lieu period. As mentioned earlier, the signature in lieu, also known as the SIL period, opens at 8:00 a.m. on Thursday, September 14th, 2023, and ends on Wednesday, November 8th, 2023 at 5:00 p.m. This is an optional period that will allow candidates to collect signatures to offset their candidate filing fee. The candidate filing fee is calculated at 1% of the Judge of the Superior Court current salary of $232,399, which is effective through June 30th, 2024. If candidates desire to offset their entire filing fee of $2,323.99, they will need to collect a total of 6,972 signatures of valid registered voters. SIL signatures shall also be applied toward the required 20 signatures needed during the nomination period. SIL signatures do not need to be filed all at once, but can be submitted throughout the signature in lieu period. Candidates can bring in petitions on different days during the SIL period, and we'll check the signatures as soon as possible and get back to you in a timely manner to ensure you stay updated on the number of valid signatures collected during the SIL period. However, the ROV does recommend you submit as many signatures as possible and at the same time to ensure you meet the requirement of collecting enough signatures in a timely manner prior to the deadline to submit. That is your goal. Here is an example of the petition in lieu form, also known as a signature in lieu or SIL form, and some facts about the petition circulation period. Keep in mind that a circulator's residence address is required to be included on a petition declaration. So if you are concerned about reducing the amount of public exposure of your residence address, then we recommend you do not circulate your own signature in lieu or nomination paper petitions. Elections Code sections 104A, B, and C further states that wherever any petition or paper is submitted to the elections official, each section of the petition or paper shall have attached to it a declaration signed by the circulator of the petition or paper, setting forth in the circulator's own hand the following: the printed name of the circulator, the residence address of the circulator giving street and number, or if no street or number exist, adequate designation of the residence so that the location may be readily ascertained, the dates between which all the signatures to the petition or paper were obtained. Each declaration submitted pursuant to this section shall also set forth the following: that the circulator circulated that section and witnessed the appended signatures being written, that according to the best information and belief of the circulator, each signature is the genuine signature of the person whose name it purports to be, and that the circulator is 18 years of age or older. The circulator shall certify the content of the declaration as to its truth and correctness under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of California with the signature of the circulator's name. The circulator shall state the date and the place of execution on the declaration immediately preceding the circulator's signature. We are now moving on to the Declaration of Intention period. The filing fee of $2,323.99 is due when the Declaration of Intention, also known as a DOI, is filed. A sworn statement of qualifications, also known as an SSQ, will also be issued and may be filed at the time sills are pulled or at the time of filing the DOI. The ROV will accept cash, a check, cashier's check, or money order for your filing fee. Here is an example of the DOI and the SSQ forms. In accordance with Elections Code Section 8023A, both documents must be filed in the ROV's office not more than 14 days nor less than 5 days prior to the first day on which a candidate nomination paper may be circulated or signed. This means you must have your DOI and SSQ forms filed with the ROV between October 30, 2023 and November 8, 2023, so that when the beginning of the nomination period opens on November 13, 2023, ROV staff can issue nomination documents to you. When signed and filed with the ROV's office, the Declaration of Intention will declare a candidate's intention to become a candidate. This is a required document to be filed during this filing period. As a reminder, this document cannot be accepted along with the other nomination documents that will be filed during the nomination period. Additionally, no candidate for judicial office is required to state his or her residential address on the DOI. However, if you do not provide your address to an election specialist on the form, then you must provide it to our office for verification of eligibility at the time the form is filed. In accordance with Elections Code Section 8023B, in the event an incumbent does not file their DOI to succeed to the same office by November 8, 2023, then that seat goes into extension between November 9 and November 13, 2023, and any person other than the incumbent or an authorized agent of the incumbent can file a DOI no later than the first day of filing nomination papers. Another reminder that along with the DOI, you will be required to file a sworn statement of qualifications. This document provides that the candidate has met the qualifications of Article 6, Section 15 of the California Constitution, that a person is ineligible to be a judge of a court of record unless for 10 years immediately preceding selection, the person has been a member of the state bar or served as a judge of a court of record in this state. We are now moving on to the nomination period. Friendly reminder to please file your Declaration of Intention and Sworn Statement of Qualifications forms between October 30th and November 8th, 2023. These documents must be filed 5 days preceding the nomination period. As you can see on this slide, the nomination period begins at 8:00 a.m. on Monday, November 13th, 2023, and ends at 5:00 p.m. on Friday, December 8th, 2023. Please remember, when you are ready to file your nomination documents, you'll be required to file all nomination documents at the same time. We'll go over all required and optional nomination documents to be filed over the next few slides. During the nomination period, a nomination paper is required and must be filed at the time as all other nomination documents. Here is an example of the nomination paper. It looks very similar to a petition in lieu paper, so please be sure to use the correct form during the intended period. Keep in mind that if a candidate has collected at least 20 signatures of valid registered voters during the seal period, then no additional signatures are required during the nomination period, and a nomination paper will not be issued by an election specialist nor filed during the nomination period. Otherwise, you may collect up to 40 signatures during the nomination period and submit to the ROV's office for verification at the same time you file your other nomination documents. All signatures must be from valid registered voters in the County of Santa Clara, and again, you must obtain 20 signatures to qualify to be a candidate. Article 6, Section 16B, judges of superior courts shall be elected in their counties at general elections except as otherwise necessary to meet the requirements of federal law. Any judicial seat wherein the judge was previously an unopposed incumbent, his or her name may not appear on the ballot unless forced by petition to allow for a write-in campaign. I'll discuss this in more detail later in the presentation. However, if the incumbent and one or more eligible candidates file nomination documents, the judicial seat will be on ballot and include a write-in campaign. Article 6, Section 16C, terms of judges of superior courts, are 6 years beginning the Monday after January 1 following their election. Thus, if you are a successful candidate, your term will begin on January 6, 2025. If a vacancy occurs during the 6-year term period, the vacancy shall be filled by election to a full term at the next general election after the second January 1 following the vacancy, but the governor shall appoint a person to fill the vacancy temporarily until the next regular election. During the nomination period, a declaration of candidacy form, not to be confused with the declaration of intention form, otherwise known as a DOC, is required to be filed with all other nomination documents. In accordance with Elections Code Section 8028A, a candidate shall not remove a declaration of candidacy form from the office of the elections official, and the elections official shall require all candidates filing a DOC to execute the declaration in the office of the ROV. Additionally, Elections Code Section 8028B states that a candidate may, in a written statement signed and dated by the candidate, designate a person to receive the DOC form from the ROV's office and deliver it to the candidate. If a candidate requires this form, please be sure to inquire with an election specialist. Our form, in addition to the declaration of candidacy, allows for all other nomination documents to be issued and filed by an authorized agent of the candidate. The form also indicates that the candidate is aware that all documents, including the declaration of candidacy, must be properly executed and delivered to the ROV's office by the 88th day prior to the direct primary election, which is no later than December 8, 2023. This is the end of the nomination period. On the first page of the DOC, the candidate will include the name of the office sought along with his or her printed first, middle, or last name. Please be sure to include any hyphenated last names only on the last name line. Please also print the approved ballot designation exactly as it appears on the Ballot Designation Worksheet. Moreover, if you have a character-based name, please check the red box and fill out the preferred transliteration form issued by the ROV. Please also fill out that section that includes addresses, telephone, fax, email, and/or website information. Keep in mind that the ROV will publish one of the addresses listed on your DOC on the ROV's website. Please be sure to check each appropriate box to indicate which address you wish to be used for publication purposes. If no box is checked, the first address listed and provided will be published. If a day telephone number or fax number, email address, or website is provided, that information will also be published. If an evening telephone number is provided and is different from the day telephone number, it will not be published and only be used for ROV use. An alternative option is to also have available to indicate that you do not want any information published. You will also be asked to fill out your qualifications in Section 4 on page 2 and take an oath of office. If you do not take your oath of office at the ROV's office, then you must have the document notarized as to the validity of your identity. A candidate statement may be purchased for inclusion in the County Voter Information Guide, also known as a CVIG. Here is an example of the candidate statement of qualifications form. The candidate will include his or her name and office sought, as well as how he or she would like their name transliterated. Additionally, the candidate may use the second page to add a statement or attach a separate document to the form. Keep in mind that format guides are also included with the form and require your attention to ensure you use the proper format when writing your statement. Here is an example of those format guides along with references to respective election code sections. The estimated candidate statement deposit is $2,320. Payment is due when a candidate statement is filed. The ROV accepts forms of payment in cash, check, cashier's check, and money order. Please keep in mind that the candidate statement deposit is an estimate only. Our fiscal division will evaluate election costs later after the nomination period. Therefore, the candidate may receive a refund or be required to pay an amount over the amount of the deposit. You'll be notified of any refund or requirement to pay additional funds towards your statement about 1 to 2 months following the certification of the March 5th, 2024 presidential primary election. A ballot designation will allow a candidate to share with the voters information about themselves. Guidelines for filling out the worksheet include words designating the city, county, district, state, or federal office or job title held by the candidate at the time of filing the nomination documents. The most common ballot designations used by seated judges are Judge of the Superior Court, Superior Court Judge, the word incumbent if the candidate is a candidate for the same office held at the time of filing the nomination papers. No more than 3 words designating either the current principal profession, vocation, or occupation, or the principal profession, vocation, or occupation during the calendar year immediately preceding the filing of nomination documents. Additionally, a ballot designation made pursuant to subparagraph A of paragraph 1 or paragraph 2 of Elections Code section 13107 shall also contain relevant qualifiers. If the candidate is an official or employee of a city, the name of the city shall appear preceded by the words City of. If the candidate is an official or employee of a county, the name of the county shall appear preceded by the words County of. If the candidate is an official or employee of a city and county, the name of the city and county shall appear preceded by the words City and County. If the candidate performs quasi-judicial functions for a governmental agency, the full name of the agency shall be included. An example would be County of Santa Clara District Attorney. Candidates may combine words with current principal profession, vocation, or occupation. An example might be lawyer, accountant, father. Candidates for judicial office who are active members of the state bar and employed by a city, county, district, state, or by the United States can use ballot designations that include words designating the office or actual job title held by the candidates at the time of filing nomination papers. An example might be attorney, attorney at law, lawyer, or counselor at law. Here's an example of the ballot designation worksheet. You'll notice at the top of page 1 that the worksheet provides for specific instructions as follows. This entire form must be completed or it will not be accepted, and you will not be entitled to a ballot designation. Do not leave any spaces blank. If information requested is not applicable, please write NA or use a dash in the space provided. Otherwise, the information must be provided. Please keep in mind that upon filing this worksheet, the document will become a public record. Please ensure that all candidate and attorney information is filled out completely. If any spaces are left blank, such as for a mailing address or email address, then enter NA or use a dash. Do not leave a space blank. Additionally, on page 1, you'll find a section to add a proposed ballot designation and 2 alternative designations. Please add at least 3 designations. If a proposed designation does not comply with the Elections Code, we will review the first alternate and, if necessary, the second alternate designation, and choose which designation to be used, then provide notification to the candidate which designation was selected. Most important to remember is to fill out in detail justification for the proposed and alternate designations. For each designation, the candidate will have 3 opportunities to justify why they would like to use the designation. For instance, if the candidate is using lawyer, accountant, father as the proposed designation, fill out all 3 sections on page 2 to justify why each of the individual words in the designation is considered your principal profession, vocation, or occupation. Provide job titles, start and end dates, employer information, and who the ROV might call to verify this information. At the bottom of page 2, consider filling out the checklist of the 12 questions that will assist with determining if the designation is eligible, then sign and date the form. Complete page 3 only if 1 or more alternate ballot designations are provided. Use this page to write the justification for both alternate ballot designation 1 and 2 in the same manner as for the proposed ballot designation on page 2. If this page is not applicable, initial at the top right corner. On the Ballot Designation Worksheet, pages 4, 5, and 6, a candidate will find additional information and instruction on how to fill out the worksheet, so please be sure to read through all pages to ensure the worksheet is filled out in its entirety. On page 4, you'll find section 13107A, B, and C of the Elections Code, wherein a candidate will find election-related information pertaining specifically to judicial contests. As discussed earlier, if the incumbent is the only candidate to have filed nomination documents for the office of Superior Court Judge, the contest shall not appear on the March 5, 2024 presidential primary election ballot unless the following occurs. If within 10 days of the filing deadline for the presidential primary election, a petition is submitted to the county elections official that indicates a write-in campaign will be conducted for the office and the proponent has collected enough signatures signed by at least 0.1% of the registered voters qualified to vote with respect to the office, and provided that the petition contains at least 100 signatures but not contain more than 600 signatures, then the incumbent's name will be forced onto the March 5, 2024 presidential primary election ballot to allow for a write-in campaign. The ROV will notify the candidate in the event a petition has qualified in this regard. Additionally, if the incumbent is the only candidate to have filed nomination documents during the primary election for the office of Superior Court Judge, the contest shall not appear on the November 5, 2024 presidential general election ballot unless the following occurs. If by not less than 83 days before the general election, a petition is submitted to the county elections official that indicates a write-in campaign will be conducted for the office and the proponent has collected enough signatures signed by at least 0.1% of the registered voters qualified to vote with respect to the office, and provided that the petition contains at least 100 signatures but not contain more than 600 signatures, then the incumbent's name shall be forced onto the general election if it has not yet appeared on the direct primary election. Therefore, the ROV will not require the incumbent candidate to file nomination documents for the presidential general election, but he or she has the option to submit a new candidate statement of qualifications form by no later than the end of the nominations period. On this slide, you'll find two examples of information we spoke about in the previous slides. Scenario 1 provides an example of how a judicial name will remain off ballot for both the direct primary and general elections. Scenario 2 provides an example of how a judicial name might appear on the ballot due to an incumbent running opposed, a candidate who has been appointed by the governor, a candidate other than the incumbent runs solely or with one or more candidates for that contest, or a qualifying petition is filed with the ROV 10 days following the filing deadline for the direct primary election, or no less than 83 days prior to the general election. We'll now move on to discuss other nomination documents that will be issued and filed during the nomination period. The candidate information request form is required to be filed with other nomination documents to ensure the ROV staff can receive information such as name, residence, or mailing address, or other contact information and phonetic spelling of a candidate's name. Candidates will receive this form well in advance of other forms, which will help us begin the process of verification and eligibility, as well as confirm certain candidate data that will be entered into our database. Candidates who have a character-based name, an optional form to fill out would be the preferred transliteration form to allow our ballot layout division to understand best what format the candidate would like their name transliterated on the ballot. The candidate can choose to accept the transliteration of their name provided by the ROV or submit for consideration their own transliteration that the ROV will independently verify. Additionally, the candidate has a choice to accept or opt out of any translations in Spanish and Vietnamese that include the appropriate accents in candidate statements. In order to ensure the name of a candidate is transliterated properly on the ballot, the candidate will need to check if he or she would like their name formatted in masculine, feminine, androgynous, non-binary, or another format. Also, if the candidate's name has accents or other diacritical marks in an alphabet-based language, and the candidate wishes to include those as part of their name on the official ballot, please also include that information on the declaration of candidacy form. The Vietnamese name accent form, another optional form to submit, also allows the candidate to choose what format their name should be transliterated, such as masculine, feminine, androgynous, non-binary, or another format. Candidates would provide the Vietnamese name characters with the appropriate accents on the form to be verified independently by the ROV, or opt out, and accents will not be used on the Vietnamese name in the candidate statement that will be published in the County Voter Information Guide. The Code of Fair Campaign Practices form is another optional form for a candidate to file and provides that the candidate will abide by basic principles of decency, honesty, and fair play throughout the election cycle. The Department of Transportation Statement of Responsibility form is prepared by the state. This form provides instruction on when and where a candidate may place temporary political signs. Candidates will fill out the second page providing specific information about their candidacy in the upcoming election and mail the original to the state, with a copy to be submitted to the ROV with all other nomination documents. Lastly, you'll need to submit Fair Political Practices Commission FPPC forms, including a Candidate Intention Statement FPPC Form 501. The candidate will only fill out Sections 1 and 3. Section 2 is for state candidates. For purposes of FPPC filing requirement, judges are not considered state candidates and therefore do not need to fill out Section 2. Candidates may also fill out and submit the form at any time prior to the nomination period or file it with all other nomination documents. Instructions on how to properly fill out the form are on page 2. So please thoroughly read that page or contact our office for assistance. Another FPPC form is the Statement of Economic Interest, FPPC Form 700. The candidate will fill out all 5 sections of the cover page and any schedules that apply to their reporting situation. Ensure you check the box for candidate and include the election date. The assuming office statement will be filed after the election with your filing officer. This ends our presentation, and we hope that it has provided useful information about the Judge of the Superior Court election activities. If you should think of questions or need assistance with resources, please feel free to contact Candidate Services at our preferred email address at candidateservices@rov.sec.gov.org or call us directly at 408-299-8639. Thank you.